I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. I've got Matt and Dennis with me for our typical Thursday episode. As I mentioned on Monday, we are going to continue talking about free agency. Matt and myself, did we do that Monday or Tuesday? I feel like it was Tuesday. It was definitely Tuesday. On Tuesday, we got through quarterbacks after obviously talking a lot about WandaVision. So today, we are going to do our best to get through running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Whatever we don't get through, well, we got an episode Monday or Tuesday next week. So I feel like we keep pushing to Tuesdays right now with everything going on. But Matt and Dennis are here, as I mentioned. How are you gentlemen doing on this beautiful Thursday?
I am doing fantastic, but following Twitter, I thought they changed the name of that show to Boner Vision.
Oh,
you know, for someone who I'm pretty sure you don't watch the show, that was very, very apropos. Very good job. I'm proud of you. That was a good one.
He had to wait almost as many days as the show did to make that boner joke.
Yep. Yeah, well, yeah, I hear a lot of people are getting canceled, among other things, right now. It's a fun time to be alive, I guess.
Yeah. No, I'm doing pretty good. It's starting to rain here. It's been in the 60s all week, almost hit 70 yesterday. So I'm off work, and I don't have to go back to now. I have to do a trip Sunday morning bright and early. So right after the clocks get moved ahead, I have to get up and take some people to the airport. But life is good. I can't complain.
Yeah, it's always a bummer when you work on Sunday morning. You have to be at work at 6:30 on the time change day because, not to mention here, we're getting a blizzard. You know, we were where you were a couple of days ago.
What's your favorite flavor?
Favorite flavor of what?
Of Blizzard.
Blizzard. I'm a Snickers Blizzard guy myself.
My God, I wish that was the only kind of blizzard I had to worry about. But we now the weather service says we're in line for anywhere between 4 and 40 inches of snow. So, you know, it's a nice tight range you can plan your life around.
I mean, if it makes you feel better, wrong side. I'm supporting you. I got my Colorado. Where was this? Estes Park. I was trying to remember where I got the shirt at.
Estes Park is for sure getting 40 plus inches. They're in the bullseye.
Yeah,
them and Cheyenne. Basically,
I'm thinking about you guys.
From Denver all the way north, they said at least 2 feet. I was like, thank God I'm a little south.
Yeah. Yeah, I will definitely be thinking about you guys and hoping that it's not nearly as bad as they are saying. So, running backs. I realize I say so a lot too. If you guys follow Ricky. Spread, I'm really started to pick up that I say certain words a lot.
I wasn't sure what to go with. I couldn't think about what I normally. Now that's all I'll be thinking about today, though.
I know. Well, I thought I said all right a lot, which I feel like I do. And then someone pointed out that I also say in my opinion, so, and as well. And I was like, well, that's great. So like all of my shows, I let anybody get anything edgewise because I'm saying a lot of things a lot. So anyways, Aaron Jones.
Look, you just knocked them all out there.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe I won't use them again for the rest of the show, or at least until we get to like the third running back on this list. I for one want him to go back to the Packers. It would be great for him being there with Aaron Rodgers, but he's the top guy in this free agency class. There's been a lot of rumors linking him to Miami. I know there was another team. A lot of people talked about Jets, a lot of people want him to go to San Francisco, obviously, with Kyle Shanahan and what he could do in that offense. Dennis, where do you think he lands in, and where do you think the best spot for his skill set is?
Well, as much as I would like him to go back to Green Bay, they're currently 27th in cap space, sitting at a negative $8,346,000. So they have some significant work to do. Now, we know it can happen. We just saw the Chiefs clear $20 million today, cutting both of their starting offensive tackles. That doesn't seem smart to me, but what do I know?
It's a bold strategy.
I just do fantasy.
Bold strategy.
Let's see if it works out for him.
Patrick Mahomes sitting there going like, did you guys not watch the Super Bowl tape?
I mean, I would imagine they've got to have some idea like that they can bring them back on a lesser deal or something. You can't cut both your tackles and not have some kind of idea you're going to be able to work out something, I would think.
Well, I don't know how up to date Spot Track is, if they've updated, if they're like going to the minute with all these cuts. Currently, Kansas City is still at a negative $4 million in cap space. If that $12 million makes them have $8 million in cap space, then that's definitely a positive thing. If cutting $20 million worth of savings gets you to negative $4 million, it's going to be a rough off season. But back to Jones, he's a very, very dynamic player, and I think he could fit just about anywhere. He's a great pass catcher. Putting him in San Francisco, who they have lots of cap space, fantastic move. Miami with lots of cap space, fantastic move. The Jets, unfortunately, he's a running back.
I don't like Miami. So, I'm curious, what do you like about Miami?
I like the opportunity. I think he's gonna, as much as I like Myles Gaskin and Salvon Ahmed, and I like both of those players, they can't hold a candle to Aaron Jones. And Jones is just super duper. They can do what Jones does, just neither one of them do it well as Jones.
Talk about no cap space, that would be Atlanta. Just to reference our comment there.
I got an idea for Atlanta, and it's not Aaron Jones as much fun as that would be.
Hopefully it wasn't Mark Ingram either, because apparently he's the first running back off this list off the board.
Yeah, you know what? And I don't hate what Ingram did. He got paid. He's like, I'm gonna get it. I want a job. I'm gonna take a job. Anyways, back to Aaron Jones. I don't want him to go to the Jets because I roster substantial shares of LaMichael Pirine. I don't really want him to go to Miami because I roster significant shares of Myles Gaskin and Salvon Ahmed. So for me, I'm aiming for San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco is not too bad. I sent in a draft. I don't think they've published it yet. He was one of the 5 free agents I looked at that are kind of probably the biggest names on the board. As somebody who rosters a few significant shares of Aaron Jones, I honestly would love for him to stay in Green Bay because, he was RB2 in 2019. He was RB5 last year. He seems to really fit with Aaron Rodgers and what they're doing there. The other one, I don't know how realistic this is financially. I didn't go look at cap space because I'm just going to keep this to where I would like them to go, is Pittsburgh, because Aaron Jones' skill set reminds me with the way he's dynamic as a pass catcher and as a rusher and putting up points and kind of making those big plays as a Le'Veon Bell type skill set when Bell was really humming. So that I could see that as a good fit. I don't think San Francisco is too bad, what you mentioned. I get from a cap space perspective the Jets and Miami, but that would kind of bum me out.
So Pittsburgh has about $6 million available right now. I'm assuming that's after they reworked Big Ben's deal and everything. They're usually pretty good about updating their stuff fairly quickly. So about $6 million. So, and I mean that, I feel like I'm. Go ahead.
You know where I'd like to see, and I haven't. They're not in terrific cap shape cap wise, but Buffalo, put him back there with Josh Allen with Diggs on the outside. that offense would be unstoppable. And I think Allen is going to regress from last season. But, man, having a weapon like that, dangerous offense.
Buffalo has about 4 million. I actually have another player I'd like to go see Buffalo, but I kind of feel like we're on the same mindset. As much as I love Singletary, they need to get somebody else in there. So for me on Jones, like I said, I want him to go. I'd love for him to stay in Green Bay. Outside of that, I don't love any of the landing spots. Matt and I talked about it a little bit with the Miami. I'm kind of with you, Dennis. Like, I think Gaskin and Ahmed showed enough that if Jones goes there, I don't guarantee that he'll get the ball. I still think that they'll find a way to give at least one of those guys some of the share, maybe not both, but at least one of them, which hurts his value, hurts their value. I do like Atlanta that PJ mentioned there, but they don't have the money, and I don't know how well that he's going to go there. 49ers, again, I think is the best, but I also agree. PJ commented that 49ers don't pay running back. I mean, they pay Jerick McKinnon, and maybe that's why they don't pay him anymore because of what happened with Jerick McKinnon. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. He's the one, if I'm being honest, off this whole list that I'm truly interested in seeing where he goes, because the rest of these guys, as we're going to get through the list, I don't think have a whole lot of fantasy value left unless one of them lands with the 49ers, in which case I think it boosts their value because he's going.
Don't you feel like he has the potential to be this offseason's Austin Hooper, where you're like, oh, he could end up in a great situation fantasy-wise, and not that Austin Hooper's a bad player or that he isn't helping Cleveland, but as soon as he signed there, you're like, well, sorry, I held on to my shares.
Yes and no. I think that fits better in a way of, I did not want Hooper to leave Atlanta because I thought that was the best place for him. I kind of feel like that's what. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's where I was like, I feel like that's where it fits. I don't know if he'll have the same value if he leaves Green Bay. Like, that's where I'm really worried about it, because I like Aaron Jones a lot, and we keep talking about, or I see a lot of people talking about they want him to go somewhere else because, he'll finally get the ball. But do we know he can handle that workload? Because he has dealt with injuries every single year. Now, nothing massive, but he's gotten banged up. Maybe that he still produces, as you mentioned, as a top 5 running back with Green Bay, even not getting all of the touches. Like, maybe Green Bay does that for a certain reason. So he's the one guy, like I said, I'm very intrigued to see where he goes. Next up on our list is Kenyon Drake. He was obviously with the Cardinals. Matt, do you think he returns? Is there anywhere you think he could go? I actually heard them talking today. Some people mentioning that it might be smart for him to return back to Miami. Now that Gase is gone, maybe he's a very good fit there. I think he would just blend right in with the other 2 running backs they have there in Gaskin and Ahmed, and all 3 of them would just make it a very frustrating 3-headed monster, kind of like looked like it was going to be at the beginning of the year for Miami.
Yeah, he probably had a better season we think of. He had 955 yards, 10 TDs. Arizona obviously franchise tagged him last year because they, and I think I just figured out what my repeated word is. I think it's obviously. Arizona franchise tagged him with the thought that he was going to be a big piece of their offense. I don't think he ever developed into what maybe they had thought, or some of us had thought. I saw people that thought he was going to be a strong RB1. We never really got that throughout the season. I do not think he goes back to Arizona. Some people have said that, they really want him back. I haven't heard the team say anything like that. Philly would be depressing too, because how is he different than Miles Sanders? I would think if Philly brings a running back, it's got to be somebody who's a different kind of style. Because they want to have some kind of battering ram. Kenyon Drake would be an upgrade over Boston Scott, though, probably. I don't know about Miami, too. It almost feels like he does a lot of the same things or has a similar skill set to Myles Gaskin. But, maybe he goes back there. Drake, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a running back that gets signed post-draft.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be I feel like is my phrase. So I feel like there's going to be.
Thanks for bringing this therapy hour to us, Ricky. You're the best.
For Drake, his fit for me, he's not going to get top dollar. he's a good back. He's not a great back. He can catch the ball. He never delivered, I think, on Arizona's expectations, or I guess what we perceived Arizona's expectations to be based on franchise tagging him, because for whatever reason, they wouldn't use him in the pass game and they didn't give him 20 carries a game. It was like, hey, we're going to franchise you and keep you here because we believe in you. Go sit down. And I didn't get a lot of that. So for me, I look at Drake is going to go somewhere. He's going to need to go somewhere that has opportunity and isn't going to be in on the big guys, that doesn't have a lot of money to spend. I think Kenyon Drake fills that role in Atlanta. They don't have a ton of money. They're still juggling numbers around and restructuring and cutting people. And if they can bring Drake in on a 2-year, $9 million deal, $10 million deal, something like that, he hasn't proven, I don't think, that he can be long-term. He can be the guy, but he can catch the ball. He's an effective runner. And if he can land in Atlanta and get 60% of the touches, 18 carries and 5 targets a game, 16 carries, 5 targets a game, I think he could be really productive in that offense. And he's better than all of the guys there, unless they bring somebody else in that's a rookie or something. I like Drake to Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely gets the workload. PJ asked Drake to San Francisco. I'm going to be honest, and maybe it's just because I love Kyle Shanahan. I think you could put me in San Francisco and they'd find a way to make that work. Like, he's brilliant. So, I mean, he fits, but I think he's also very close to what Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert do as well. So I don't know if that's going to change much for them. I would probably take him over both of those guys if I had to draft them, but yeah, I mean, I like it. Atlanta's going to be, I think, the most interesting one just because of Arthur Smith being there. We all assume he's going to run the ball a lot because of what he did with Derrick Henry in Tennessee. So I think whatever running back ends up in Atlanta is going to be a screaming buy this offseason, whether it is a free agent or they bring in a draft pick. I think anybody that ends up going there is going to have a lot of value this offseason. Dennis's guy, Chris Carson, obviously was with the Seahawks last year. We talked a little bit about this. I want to say it was on last week's episode. Dennis mentioned that there were some rumors that he might be the guy to go to Pittsburgh with Connor leaving. Dennis, you still think that's a great fit for him?
I do. I think, Pittsburgh wants to – they have a method that they like to use with their running backs. They like to have the guy. Carson fits that mold. He's going to be probably, top third when it comes to salary. He's not going to be the highest paid guy out of this class. And he's going to be above the median of these free agent signings. But I think they can get him in there. They've got a substantial work to do still to get their cap in line. But bringing Carson in, I get the knock being, well, Connor was always injured, so we're going to bring Carson in who's always injured. I get that. That seems like a lot of perception, not necessarily reality. But Carson tends to, and Connor both, their injuries tended to come from playing hard. But Carson can catch the ball adequately. He's good in pass protection, and he is a good runner. I think it would make a ton of sense to bring somebody like that in that you can slot in. You're not going to have to worry about your running back spot because he's a proven veteran. And now Ben can figure out what's going to happen with their wide receiver core and their tight end. I mean, I think, is Ebron still there? Is he a free agent too? Yeah. I know McDonald retired.
No, Ebron's still there for now.
So, yeah. But no, I love Carson to Pittsburgh.
Oops. They can only handle one McVay in the NFC West, PJ. So I think I'll just let Sean be there and handle things. I'll just kind of sit back and do the podcast. But I appreciate that. I'll look into it.
Boy, I was just looking at that salary cap chart because you guys brought it up.
Yeah.
Did you see the column where it says players under contract? Not only has Atlanta $15 million over the cap, they only have 39 players under contract. What a time to be a Falcon
you
fan.
can only have 11 on the field at one time, Matt.
Yeah.
Don't get
Yeah,
worked
but
up.
apparently
A lot of two-way players.
Matt Ryan and Julio Jones are also going to be playing safety.
Going back to high school.
Seen Julio play, Dave? Have you seen Julio play safety? Dude's a beast.
So, Chris Carson, the Pittsburgh spot isn't too bad. I still don't understand why it's not more. There is nothing coming out that Seattle would like him back, because it seemed like he was a great fit there and was very productive. He's a guy I could also see the 49ers going and get. We've seen the 49ers in a couple of these years go and grab marquee players Seattle had to let go. That would be an extra kind of knife in the back in the division. And Chris Carson, I think, probably fits more of the running back style that the 49ers use, because they haven't used them much as pass catchers, whereas Aaron Jones, you kind of look at him as a true dual threat, somebody who you really, if you want to maximize the value, you get him involved in the passing game. It's not that Carson can't catch the ball, but he's been more of a pounder. I could see that being a decent location for him.
All right, so let's see here. Leonard Fournette, Buccaneers. Bucks obviously just franchise tagged Godwin. They brought back, who they bring back on defense? I heard
Levante David.
David.
Money is getting a little bit tighter, yet Leonard Fournette has said that he wants to go back, and maybe, I know obviously he had the really good playoff run, but wasn't quite that good in the regular season. Maybe he's willing to take a little bit of a pay cut to come back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and quote-unquote run it back. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, Tampa Bay wouldn't be a bad spot to run it back. It just feels like they're running out of capital. Their higher priority right now is Shaq Barrett, and Leonard Fournette didn't have an incredible regular season. He only ran for 367 yards and 6 TDs in 13 games. He had 30-something receptions, so that wasn't too bad. But I think what sticks with people about him being successful was, Jones got injured toward the end of the season, and Leonard Fournette was the man in the playoffs, including a pretty big Super Bowl performance. He ran for 89 touchdown, caught 4 for 46 and another touchdown. Those are the things that stick with you when you're going. You remember kind of the end. I was surprised at how little regular season production he had when I was looking at it. Tampa Bay would kind of make sense. I actually kind of liked him as a fit for Miami. Because I could see him being kind of the pounder. Then he would also fulfill his life dream of never having to leave Florida. He went from Jacksonville, goes down to Tampa Bay. I kind of liked the idea of Miami because he would be somebody that you could kind of sit back there and would be a great pounder. And then if they wanted to mix in Myles Gaskin, who we saw have some dynamic pass catching, especially in that game against the Raiders, being able to go out there, and that felt like kind of a good mix and kind of similar to things that we've seen done, with Tampa Bay, where they were mixing backs in, take some of the pass catching pressure off of Fournette. And there's also part of me that wonders how much pass catching is going to be a part of a Tua-led Miami offense. Fournette would be a good pounder. He's been pretty durable. So that was something that came to mind for me.
Yeah, I feel like he wants to be back in Tampa, and they want to try to repeat. I think if I have to choose between Fournette and Antonio Brown, I'm going to choose Fournette. But I think Fournette is, as well as his social rehabilitation went. There was some talk when he was in Jacksonville that he wasn't a good guy and stuff. And he came out of his Tampa experience, people going, this dude's all right. I would almost, a surprise landing spot for Fournette. I could see him in Seattle, where Pete Carroll likes a workhorse, and they want to, give the Rashad Penny experiment a shot. But Fournette going up there and kind of taking over and being the guy, that's something I could see happening, and they've got the money for it. So it's a challenging fit for Fournette because he's not an explosive back. He is a bigger kind of grinder, but he's not powerful like Derrick Henry. But he's an okay pass catcher, and he does all of the things a professional running back needs to do. So I think if you're looking for somebody to come in and get you 3.9 to 4.1 yards a carry and catch 30 passes, I think Fournette's your guy.
James Conner was with the Steelers. Looks obviously did not have a great year last year. Some of that due to injuries, which he suffered the year before as well. But when he was on the field, for the most part, he was very productive. I don't see any way he goes somewhere to be a starter right now. I just think he's better to fit into a committee. Honestly, don't know where that best would be. I think he's the guy that I would probably lean toward almost a switch with Seattle and Pittsburgh, and him going to Seattle to kind of do what Carson was doing and then rely on Penny, because that is one of the things he was very good at in college at San Diego. Is it San Diego State? Am I remembering that correctly, Dennis?
Yeah. No, he was Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about not Penny, not Connor. He was very good at catching the ball in college, so that could be something the very good duo, especially with the way that
DJ Dallas.
I love DJ Dallas, but I think they're still going to give Penny a shot. So, and with Penny's speed as well, I think that gives them a very good kind of duo with James Conner. So I would think Seattle is probably one of the better fits for him, in my opinion. Dennis, where do you think James Conner goes?
I don't know where James Conner goes, but I think he is entering the Jordan Howard, Carlos Hyde phase of his career, where he's probably going to not get signed until pretty close to camp, when somebody looks around and says, hey, we need some big depth, so let's bring Conner in. Or somebody gets an injury in preseason, and then Conner can step in and carry 50% of the carries and be a solid back. I just think his play style has beat him down pretty good. He almost is one of those guys where, he might be better served to opt out this year and then come back in 2022 after a year of nutrition and yoga, fully healthy, and return to his early career glory. But Conner, I just think that the injuries have added up on him pretty quickly, and he's going to go somewhere as a backup with aspirations to be in a committee or be that professional that steps in when somebody gets injured.
Yeah, and Seattle's not a bad thought. I thought about that. Part of me wonders, does he just stay in the division? Do the Ravens decide to add him in there? They let Ingram go. Gus Edwards is a free agent. Do they, we figure they're going to add somebody in there. Do they go that way?
They tendered Gus.
A second round tender too. I don't see
Yeah, so
anybody
then
paying for that. Yeah.
The other one, you look at people that have cap, maybe a Cincinnati, where we've seen Mixon have trouble staying on the field, and it was pretty clear Giovanni Bernard, as much as we might like him, was not the answer. And if you're talking about wanting that great, the guy that could do it all, that could be the professional coming in and carrying you when somebody gets injured, for a young team that's building, that has cap space, that could be, a good veteran presence in there and somebody that could step in.
That's a great call.
All right. It's going to blow some people away right here. I can promise you that. Marlon Mack, under the radar guy. I would love to see him go to Buffalo. He's the guy that I was talking about. I think, obviously, coming off the injury last year, Buffalo does not have a lot of cap room. I think it was $4 million, but I could see Mack taking like a short 1-2 year deal. He's still young, so take a 1-2 year deal to prove that he can stay on the field, stay healthy. I think that he brings and trust me, for everybody watching, especially if you've watched or listened to this for a long time, knows this hurts me saying this, but he brings a little bit more Juju and Zuzu than I think Singletary does. He's faster, more explosive, definitely more elusive. He can catch the ball as well. I think he's a guy that could really fit well into that offense, help out Josh Allen, not have to run the ball that much, and still, you can still use Zach Moss down at the goal line, but Mack's a guy who, unlike Singletary, can break off that long run and score a long touchdown. The Singletary seems to get caught from behind. So Mack was the one guy when I was looking at this list, I thought just fits really well with the Bills. He won't come in at a really expensive contract because of the injury last year, and I think it's fair to admit he looked good up until that injury happened in that first game. So was it the first game, right? It was the first game.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, he
had
good.
He had 4 carries for 26 yards. And he caught 3 for 30 when he got hurt, so it was early.
I mean, he looked better than I thought he did, and I mean,
the only obstacle I see though is that his injury, it's not an ACL, it was an Achilles, and Achilles, Achilles are the ones that are the hardest to come back from for running backs, because that's where you get that explosion and that quickness, that power. So I agree. He's probably going to be smart and take a 1-year deal, prove it deal. But I question how effective he's going to be this year, because he's probably not going to be back to full strength. I mean, you saw it happen with Dante Foreman, who, well, probably not the caliber back of Marlon Mack, which seems kind of odd.
He was also a head case.
Yeah. But Foreman, it took him, he was virtually out of the league for 2 years, and then he resurfaced this year in Tennessee, backing up Derrick Henry, and still doesn't look necessarily like he's regained the explosion he had at Texas. So so Max rookie draft, I'm drafting at the 110. I drafted Alvin Kamara, and I was so enthralled with Zay Jones and Marlon Mack that I turned around, and before the 111 could pick, I traded Alvin Kamara for the 2-1 and the 2-9 so I could draft Zay Jones and Marlon Mack. So I believe in Marlon Mack, but I just have concerns about
that. Probably seemed so good at the time, and now it's such a bummer.
Well, you know what's crazy is you see all of this stuff. People tell us about your worst trade. I'm like, well, let me tell you something. That's my trade. Anyways, and the guys won the league a couple years with Alvin Kamara. And
to be fair, you didn't know exactly how good Kamara could be. But
no.
No, I think the nightmare scenario with Mack has to be that he re-signs with the Colts, and Frank Reich remembers that he has options other than Jonathan Taylor, right? Because
the nightmare if you're a Jonathan Taylor manager.
Yeah, if you're a Jonathan Taylor manager, because it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility with the kind of severity of that injury and the type of injury that is, that he tries to, that he gives a hometown kind of short-term deal and goes back to a team he knows, a medical staff that's worked with them, and eases back in. Because you bring up a very good point that while he's an under-the-radar guy and could be potentially an interesting free agent, could also be a guy that's on PUP to start the season. No guarantee he's back, to compete hard week 1. I like Matt's potential landing place in Buffalo, but that sort of assumes that he's back at full strength and ready to go week 1. We haven't heard a lot, or at least I haven't seen a lot of reports about how he's progressing with his injury.
Well, yeah, and I think we're probably not going to hear a ton just because he's not, an elite caliber player. So stuff will squeak out, but probably not too much. So let's move on to the has-beens.
So who we got? Oh, yeah, Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley. I would think
Well, Mark
Bell
Ingram was on the
gets-
list too. You can still include Mark Ingram.
Well, because he
even
actually
though he
signed somewhere,
today.
so he I guess somewhat matters. I don't think Gurley signs anywhere unless there's an injury in camp or something like that. I just don't see it. I do think Bell possibly gets a shot somewhere, but I don't think he's fantasy relevant, if I'm being honest.
Jets.
Oh,
Right
God,
back.
wouldn't that just be hilarious?
The one that makes me wonder is, does he give some kind of a discount and go back to Pittsburgh to have a run with Ben?
I mean, didn't he say he wanted to go back?
He said
to
he
Pittsburgh?
wanted to go back to Pittsburgh. He seems like he's at the point in time where he's not going to be commanding big contracts. Pittsburgh doesn't have a ton of cap. It's a guy obviously Ben likes. They could then mix him in with some of their other ones. I thought he showed moments of explosion still with Kansas City. Kansas City's player rotations were weird. But I do agree with you. It's not going to be a big money, and I don't know how good I would feel about banking on, which is a pretty meteoric fall for two guys that were the consensus 1 and 2 picks in Dynasty 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think Gurley is it would not surprise me for him to retire. Just the knee is bad, and I know he can still perform. Yeah, Gurley can go out and give you 35 or 40 snaps, but you don't know if next week he's going to be able to give you one if he does that. And so trying to manage his workload just becomes it's such a risk because his knee just doesn't seem to hold up. His heart is there, but the knee can't hack it. Bell, I feel like there's still something there, and I just don't know what's going to bring it out. I don't know how to get it out of him anymore. Is going back to Pittsburgh the deal? I don't know. I would have thought that Kansas City being, an almost perfect opportunity, but it seemed like he just almost seemed disinterested at times. So maybe Bell needs to move on to his rap career. I don't know. There's another guy not coming on our show.
Let's hope it's not coming to that.
I was about to say
Le'Veon,
he might want to try and go. He might want to try and find another place to play football than go on that route. But Mark Ingram is the last guy on this list, and before the show today, he signed with the Texans a 1-year, $3 million deal, increasing the age of the backfield there for the Houston Texans. I don't honestly know what to think. I mean, I guess good for him for getting the deal. I hope it's all guaranteed, and he's going to get a nice little payday here for $3 million. But I don't see it having much fantasy value. Yeah, I really don't know what to think. I'll let you guys have this.
I do think it bodes well for David Johnson. Ingram is going to be a very, I think, specialized player, short yardage guy, fantastic locker room guy. And if any team needs a locker room guy right now, it's Houston. And Ingram definitely is that. I don't know how much David Johnson has left in the tank. I feel like he can be a productive low-end running back 2 with occasional high running back 2 upside. And I don't think necessarily Ingram really affects that at all. So Houston's getting ready to start a major rebuild. I don't think Deshaun is going to be there. And it's gonna, unfortunately, I feel bad for David Culley.
Well, let's just say that this is not the kind of signing that convinces Deshaun Watson he's made a horrible mistake. I'm still not running out and grabbing Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can. I mean, I think at best right now, if you have shares of Mark Ingram, you might be able to convince someone to come get him for even like maybe a 3rd-round pick. And outside of that, though, I don't.
If you rostered David Johnson, maybe, maybe you're looking at a handcuff.
Yeah. That's what I'm selling. If I've got him, I'm like, hey, you can get your handcuffs. Just give me a third. Toss me a fifth. Just give me something. He's yours. I'm not that picky. Let's do some
another
business.
one that had like a sort of meteoric fall. Maybe he was never as good as what we saw in 2019, but
I think the injuries hurt him bad. He just when he came back from that, what was that? Was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't remember what the injury was that he had, but he had a bad lower body injury, and then he came back on the field and just looked like a completely different player. Like he was not running fast at all. I can't remember when that was. It was, I don't remember. It was before, I think the year that he ended up, they ended up trading for Kenyon Drake. So that'd have been 2 years ago now. Is that correct?
Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake was.
Are you talking about Mark Ingram? I'm talking about David Johnson. Sorry,
I was talking about.
Wires got crossed there. I was talking about David Johnson. So, yeah, I wasn't expecting Ingram to fall off like that either this year. That was kind of the reason why I had J.K. Dobbins as low as I did in my rankings. I thought Ingram was going to have one more good year. That did not happen. All right, let's talk about some wide receivers. We've got Kenny Golladay of Dennis's Lions, who I thought was the most interesting non-tag of the week here. I thought for sure
he was
they were
definitely
going to tag
the biggest winner of franchise tag day.
Yes, yeah, I'm intrigued to see what he does. He is one of the players I think would benefit immensely from like signing a 1-year deal with the team and then going back into free agency next year when it's expected that the cap is going to rise back up. So Dennis, do you think that he does that as well? And if he does, what team do you think he signs with for a year? Or do you think he goes somewhere, signs a long-term deal? Where would you like that to be?
I feel like he's probably, there I go again. I feel like he's going to go with maybe a 3-year deal or 2 years with a third-year option. I like the fit of Golladay in Kansas City or Philadelphia. In Kansas City, they've tried having the bigger guy across from Tyreek Hill, and the issue has mostly been Sammy Watkins is neither consistent nor healthy, and Demarcus Robinson is just not consistent. So putting Golladay across from Tyreek Hill, I think that eases into what should be a beginning decline of Travis Kelce in a couple years. If you have somebody like Kenny Golladay in Philadelphia, they just need weapons. I'm not sure what they're in terrible cap space too. So I don't know that they can afford him.
In Kansas City.
Yeah, but I'd love to see him there. I don't know that Jalen Hurts is going to be the answer at quarterback, but with Miles Sanders, offensive line that needs some rebuilding, a defense that's probably going to put them in position to play from behind a little bit. Jalen Reagor hasn't stepped up yet. Giving them an alpha wide receiver to be what they hoped Alshon Jeffrey would or J.J. Arcega-Whiteside would be, I think that Golladay could be really productive there.
Well, I'm going for the Eagles' old pass catcher with my Golladay. I've said for a couple of weeks, I think the Colts, they have the money and they should go get a premier receiver to put with Pittman and Paris Campbell. And, it would have been nice to get Allen Robinson. Obviously, he got franchise tagged. Kenny Galladay's, the best out there. That's who I'm going after. I think another place that's potentially likely for him to land is Miami because they seem so locked in on improving wide receivers and have so much cap space too.
Well, but how similar are Pittman's and Galladay's game, though? It seems like they kind of do the same thing.
I think Galladay's a much bigger deep threat. His career yards per catch is 16.8. He has 21 touchdowns in 4 seasons. I mean, in 2019, he had 65 receptions and 1162. Well, but if you were looking at replacing the T.Y. Hilton role in that offense, which is really what's come open, Galladay is a huge target. He's 6'4". He goes down. I think it makes Pittman better. And then if Campbell can ever get healthy and get integrated, you have somebody in the slot. They're a candidate, I think, to go get a tight end. They've been rumored a possible landing spot for Ertz. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a run at either a Hunter Henry or a Jonnu Smith or something either, because the only tight end they have left is Jack Doyle. He's not getting any younger. They have potential to be a good offense and to be a Super Bowl contender, and they have a lot of cap. So that's a team where you could see one of these receivers go and really thrive that also has the money to pay for it. I think the big challenge, I liked your potential locations in a Philadelphia or a Kansas City. Those guys don't have money, and it's hard to imagine. Kansas City is still over the cap and better find a tackle, or it doesn't matter who they have out there opposite Tyreek Hill, as we saw in the Super Bowl. So I think that's probably more of a concern for me.
I know Matt's not here to put your comment up, PJ, but I gotta believe Kenny Galladay's smarter than going to the Ravens. That would be a terrible spot to go.
Well, he has been rumored to go to the Ravens. I mean, he's probably better than Marquise Brown. The question for the Ravens, I don't disagree that they should go get better pass catching options in Baltimore, but I think we still don't know. Is it a matter of not having the right people to maximize Lamar Jackson's skill, or is Lamar Jackson what he is as a passer, and we need to adjust to that?
I just released a article about Mark Andrews' trade that I did today, and in it I said, well, I don't expect the 2019 Lamar Jackson efficiency. I do expect some progression from 2020 in 2021. So I think he'll be better as a passer this year, but I think he'll be hard pressed to put up 36 passing touchdowns at any point in the rest of his career. So Juju Smith-Schuster is the next one on the list. Did you have something else?
No, I think we were thinking alike. I think that's why Matt ducked out, not his favorite player.
Right. So the Steelers.
We mentioned Juju and he was hurt.
I like Juju. Did you say he's not my favorite player? Oh, sorry. I was student teacher thing just happened. So, no, I like Juju. I don't think he goes back to Pittsburgh, though. I don't see that happening. Where'd you guys say that he goes? I didn't catch that part.
Starting.
We just started him.
Matt, Juju Smith-Schuster probably not returning to Pittsburgh. Where would you like to see him go?
My two top locations. I think we've seen. First of all, Juju probably gets too much hate. The guy's been in the league for 4 years, and he's put up 308 receptions, 37, 26 TDs. What did he say?
He said that Juju's trash. You said that he gets a lot of hate, and on point, the comment comes in that he's trash.
I think we saw his first 2 years thrive really well playing opposite another guy. So my top two, my number one location is Arizona. I could see him being a much better option than Christian Kirk opposite DeAndre Hopkins playing with Kyler Murray. I think that would add a significant dimension to that offense. Another place I thought would be a decent landing spot is Washington, where he'd play opposite of Terry McLaurin. They, of course, have a quarterback question, and it doesn't make my heart happy to think that Teddy Bridgewater is the answer that they're settling on, but still think that would be a good spot.
No, I like it. We talked a little bit about that the other day, that we wanted to see someone opposite Terry McLaurin to kind of help him out. So I don't hate the Washington call at all.
Yeah, Juju is he's a good receiver, and I feel like he just doesn't want to. He's got it in his head the type of receiver he is, and it doesn't always fit with what the plan is, either for a game or for a team, and so you can see when he's the second guy, much like Corey Davis, when they're the second guy, they can excel. accepting that and then going out and just being the best at that, that's what Juju needs to do. And, that's like I almost felt like Juju in Indianapolis, where it'll allow Pittman to move a little further down the field. But does Juju, does he go for that kind of role? Could he do that? Maybe Juju going to New England and taking over for Edelman. I don't know. I'm just grabbing at straws, looking at cap space. So,
all right. T.Y. Hilton, Colts. Obviously, last year doesn't seem like he'll be back with Indy, just based on some of the things he said and the way that the front office is. Looks like they are moving forward here. Where do you think the best fit is for T.Y., Dennis?
His couch.
Ouch.
Yeah, I mean,
coming in hot off the top rope.
He's had such a run of injuries, and then he was relatively healthy most of last season. He can still be a very effective wide receiver. I think a spot where he might fit in well would be Detroit. He's got enough deep speed still to provide some of that.
Poor Jared Goff going to get T.Y. Hilton and Tyrell Williams. Please make this a winner.
Yeah. I mean, Dan Campbell was smart enough to get a 6-year contract. I think everybody in Detroit knows that this season is like it's a throwaway. We're tearing it down. We're not bringing Kenny back. I feel bad. The guy I feel bad for is Deandre Swift, because in 3 or 4 years when they're back and competitive, he's going to be at the end of his window and end of his contract versus TJ Hawkinson and tight ends who can play almost as long as quarterbacks. Putting Hilton in Detroit opposite Tyrell Williams, I think the two of them could combine for a full season.
Yeah, Hilton. I mean, if Hilton was smart, he would ask Andrew Luck to start a flag football league, and he would just try to get on his team there and relive some of his glory days. I think he's probably a guy that signs post draft when they're looking to fill. It also depends on what kind of a discount he's looking to take. If somebody's going all in on Will Fuller and misses out on that, do they then go kind of, is T.Y. Hilton there? Because it feels like his best production as a receiver has been as kind of the deep bomb player.
Yeah. Corey Davis had his best year by far this past season with the Tennessee Titans. Best fit for him, Matt?
I kind of wish he would just go back to Tennessee, because I think he had finally found a groove there playing with Tannehill opposite A.J. Brown. It doesn't.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they've talked that's happening.
I think they re-signed one of them, either him or Jonnu. I don't think both go back, but I do think one goes back.
I think Jonnu's gone.
So then there you go.
Yeah, maybe. That wouldn't be bad. I've seen him linked potentially to Washington. I don't think that would be bad. I've seen him linked to Baltimore. That would be amusing. Corey Davis and Marquise Brown and the underwhelming All-Stars.
Hey, running all verts on Madden works. You never know. Give it a shot. Just saying.
I still feel like he's another one of these free agents. You kind of hope for fantasy purposes he sticks where he was.
Yeah, I think we've seen. I feel like I've seen some talk about him going to the Giants as well. He's the guy of the free agent wide receivers. If Washington is going to sign a free agent wide receiver, I want them to sign Corey Davis. I think putting him across from Terry McLaurin, with McLaurin's speed and his technical ability, Davis has enough speed, but he also has size. He seems built for that number 2 wide receiver role. Hopefully they bring in a quarterback there. which, to me, I don't know, maybe they move Logan Thomas back to quarterback. I don't know what Washington's thinking. But,
well, they keep talking about Teddy Bridgewater.
Again,
and actually, I saw an ESPN report they are looking at Cam Newton.
Good luck, I guess, to them for that. Curtis Samuel, he is actually one of the more interesting wide receiver free agents for me. Obviously, finally had that really great season that, as a Buckeye fan, I've been hoping for a while. But now will be a free agent. I do think going back to Carolina would be great. I think he fits in well with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson there. There's obviously a lot of talk that maybe he goes to Jacksonville, hooking up with his old coach in Urban Meyer. But as Dennis mentioned when we brought that up, they have a bigger version of him doing that right now in Laviska Shenault. So, Dennis, where do you think the best fit for Samuel is?
Samuel is a tough one because, 2 years ago, he led the league in air yards, giving us all the impression he was a deep threat and just had a shitty quarterback, which the second half of that was definitely true. And then they come back this year and they sign Robbie Anderson and make him the deep threat and start running Samuel short and handing him the ball. And Samuel had a good year. Putting him somewhere, is it? I mean,
I like it. That was my pick.
Yeah. I don't know. Samuel, is he a gadget guy? Is he, is he Deebo Samuel? Is he, Paris Campbell going to take bubble screens and handoffs? Is that going to be the plan? Or is he going to go somewhere where he's a downfield threat like he was 2 years ago in Carolina? Maybe put him on the Jets and let him be the deep threat there. I'm still in on Darnold. I want to see Darnold get a real shot with some real weapons. They brought in Becton last year. They brought in Becton last year, and so they've locked down their left tackle. A couple of improvements to their offensive line. Let Denzel Mims blossom. Put Curtis Samuel there. That could be a good fit. I don't know. I want to see, as a Buckeye fan, I want to see Samuel go somewhere he can succeed. But I feel like he's starting to trend towards the dreaded better for NFL than fantasy category.
Which, speaking of, New England is what jumps to mind. You're talking about a guy that could be a deep threat one week and kind of doing gadget plays the next. That sounds exactly like the kind of thing, especially when you're talking about better for the NFL maybe than fantasy. Those multi-dimensional, can do something different week-to-week players are right up Belichick's alley.
I mean, I wouldn't hate New England if they had a quarterback, but it keeps sounding like Jared Stidham's going to be the guy, and that just
I don't believe they end up with Jared Stidham. I still think they're going to go for the red rifle.
I wouldn't mind. For me, New England, I would not mind. I do think Green Bay would be great. With the way Matt LaFleur schemes offenses, I think having Devontae Adams opposite of him means you can't really scheme for Curtis Samuel. And I think that he does just enough different than MVS or Lazard that if you had, say, Adams and MVS on the outside and then put Samuel in the slot, I mean, it's going to kill Robert Tunyon's value if he goes back there. But I think that'd be a great little outlet receiver for Aaron Rodgers in an already explosive offense. And if they don't bring Aaron Jones back, maybe instead of dumping off to the running backs, they start dumping off to Curtis Samuel. Wheels up, baby. I think that'd be a great spot for him. But I actually don't hate the New England one that much either. I think that, again, if they bring in the Red Rifle, I think we kind of talked about him going there on Tuesday's show anyways, would be kind of good. So we're going to squeeze in the last couple wide receivers here in this show. We'll save the tight ends for Monday. And we'll talk about Will Fuller because he's important, and I skipped over him in Matt's list earlier. Does not seem to be going back to the Texans, obviously. Matt put on here he thinks the best fits are the Cardinals and the Packers. Is that it, Matt? Anybody else that you like?
Well, those are places he's been rumored. I wonder if it's just because every Texan that is on the market gets rumored to go to Arizona. Maybe that's somebody said if Will Fuller signs there, we should officially designate the Houston Texans as the Arizona Cardinals farm team. But Green Bay was a place he was linked at the trade deadline. Financials are a bit of a tough one there, but he would be a better version of MVS.
Yeah, I think Fuller is, and right or wrong, my issue right now with Fuller is that it seems like to stay healthy, he has to take PEDs, and that's probably not fair, and I recognize that. But that's kind of the perception. I wasn't big on Fuller coming out. Yes, he's fast. His hands are probably a little better than I gave him credit for. But I want to see Fuller, I guess, put together a full season where he's productive, he's healthy, and he doesn't get popped for using. So
yeah, he still has a 1-game suspension no matter where he goes.
Yeah, but that won't be too bad for fantasy season. I mean, you're out 1 week, you should be good. You know,
I mean,
it's
for
not
Fuller,
baseball.
if that's the only game he misses next season, it'll be his best year.
That's true.
Yeah, very true. Antonio Brown is up next. Played with the Buccaneers last year. Had a decent season. Matt, Dennis, do you think that he takes less to go back to Tampa Bay, or does he go somewhere else?
I think he'll take less to go to Tampa Bay if he doesn't get more to go somewhere else. I don't think consciously his ego will let him turn down more money from somebody else. I think his ego will say, I can make that team a winner. I can make that team better. And that's not unique to him, I guess. You know, they're in the NFL for a reason. They're competitive. They're the best in the business. Even the worst in the NFL is one of the best in the world. So I get that mentality. But I don't know that he's got the humility to turn down more money.
I for sure thought Antonio Brown was going back to Tampa Bay earlier in the offseason. I thought they were going to lose Godwin. When they franchise tag Godwin, it made me think about it differently because I still think there's a desire to keep using Scotty Miller, who has a good chemistry with Brady and who has performed, and to get more reps to Tyler Johnson, which is another player that Brady has mentioned before. So money aside, I don't know that they need to bring Antonio Brown back. They have so many other things to do. If he ends up going back there, I think it's going to be late in the game.
Marvin Jones is an interesting one for me. Obviously, he's had some very good years with Detroit, been a very good weapon on the opposite of Kenny Golladay, and has even stepped up and proved that he can be a wide receiver 1 for fantasy when Kenny Golladay was out with Matt Stafford. He has said that he wants to go somewhere to compete for a Super Bowl. I think the best fit for him, and I know they don't have a lot of cap room, but is the Rams. Following with Matt Stafford, there's been a lot of talk about that. I think they're actually under the cap, aren't they?
No, they're the worst. They're
worst. Yeah. That's when I meant under the cap. I meant as in like they can't really spend money. They're $32 million.
If you go the full way out there, $41 million.
Yeah. So don't know if that's at all possible, but I do think he'd be a good fit there. I know some people mentioned Kansas City. Looking at teams with good cap space, I mean, I think New England could be a really good fit for him as well, but I don't know how close they are to competing for a Super Bowl, at least this year. But I could see Marvin Jones getting a multi-year deal. He is going to be a guy that I think still could retain some fantasy value depending on where he goes. Dennis, as, again, the resident Detroit Lions fan, what are your thoughts on Marvin Jones?
I think Marvin Jones recognizes right now his goal is to win a title. And when you see sort of what the landscape looks like from the salary cap reduction, you know, he's not going to be a top end, get a top end contract. He's going to probably get a 2-year deal at his age, maybe a 2-year with a 3rd-year option or something. I think he fits really, really well, and especially given what his price will be in Arizona. he's got the speed, and I think he makes a really nice complement to DeAndre Hopkins. He's a veteran that's he's not gonna bring off-field drama. He's not gonna put the team in a bad spot by not knowing what his assignment is. He's probably, for fantasy, regardless of where he goes, wide receiver 3, maybe a wide receiver 4, except for the 1 week he scores 4 touchdowns because he does. That's just what Marvin Jones does. But Jones is I could see a 60-catch season for 900 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns out of him, which is going to be a good depth receiver for fantasy. We all want wide receiver 1s, but I think he'll fit in really nice in Arizona and give Kyler Murray a good target.
Yeah, another potential option kind of along those lines that I thought of is Tennessee, especially if they don't re-up Corey Davis. They have kind of their alpha receiver in A.J. Brown, but Marvin Jones we've seen can be a great complementary guy who has a pretty diverse skill set.
All right, so the last 3 receivers on the list here, I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are, if they have any fantasy relevance going into the 2021 season, and that is some aging vets here in A.J. Green, Emmanuel Sanders, and Sammy Watkins, all who have now been released from their teams in Cincinnati or were free agents coming into this free agency period. And A.J., my goodness, I already read the names. In the Cincinnati Bengals with A.J. Green, New Orleans Saints with Sanders, and then obviously the Chiefs with Watkins. Sanders is the one that stands out to me, and he's actually a guy that I would put with New England that you mentioned earlier, Matt. I think
I was going to say one or all of these guys ends up in New England.
I feel bad because I swear someone posted that on Twitter, and they were like, now start sending out your obligatory Emmanuel Sanders to New England Patriots tweets once he got caught. And he says, but I mean, you're kind of right. That's a really great fit for him. But I do think, well, I shouldn't say all 3. Watkins to me seems the more, I think, less chance of fantasy value in 21 than the other 2. I still don't think A.J. Green's done. He still showed flashes in Cincinnati. I think both Green and Sanders have some fantasy value. Watkins, I'm just not sure on. Being in that offense and still not really being able to produce, he's the one that I would avoid
or even
regardless of where he
stay
goes
on the field.
Yeah, and I also think he could go back to Kansas City again, just take a lesser deal. I mean, dude's gotten paid twice now, so I think he could go back to KC on a really cheap deal, but I would still think Green and Sanders have some value. Dennis, where do you kind of lean on these 3 guys?
Well, I think Watkins is on his way to an Australian beach commune with Ricky Williams. I feel like
that needs to be the next reality show on ESPN.
Well, no, I actually read an article a guy wrote. He convinced his editor that if he could find Ricky Williams, would they pay for him to go interview him? And the editor said, sure. And sure enough, the guy, he found an email, emailed him, and Ricky Williams basically said, if you can find me, you got the interview. And the guy went to Australia, went to a beach, to a commune, and there was Ricky fucking Williams. It's like, all right. But no, I think Watkins is done as far as fantasy relevance. He may pop off a game here or there. Sanders, I think, he's entering the better for football than fantasy stage of his career. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't get signed until later in the summer. Once everything starts to shake out, I feel like he's in that depth signing phase of his career. A.J. Green, on the other hand, it was weird last season in Cincinnati with Green, just like it was weird with Joe Mixon. I think Green is healthy. I still think he's got a lot left in the tank. And I think he would be a phenomenal fit in Tennessee. I think putting him across from A.J. Brown, and not just for the alliteration of A.J. Green and A.J. Brown, putting him there, he provides, to me, he's a big receiver that's going to provide a steady presence. The fantasy relevance will be, he's maybe wide receiver 3-ish, I guess, if he lands there and is the other starter. But the primary reason is that Tennessee runs the ball so much. If Tennessee was a higher volume offense, I could see AJ Brown and AJ Green each putting up 100 catches. But with that lower volume passing game, it's not going to happen. And like I said, Green is a really good wide receiver who I think still has, now that he's healthy, I think he's going to have a couple good years going forward. And in Tennessee, he would look really nice. And he only has to move, a couple 100 miles.
Yeah, I mean, the one for me, so I agree, Sammy Watkins, I'm kind of not considering. Emmanuel Sanders, I think it's going to go somewhere where he actually had a good and positive impact for New Orleans for a lot of the season last year. He was their best playmaker. He had a good and positive influence with San Francisco when he was there the year before. He's kind of feels like a free agent guy on a team that thinks they're contending, that they grab. AJ Green was linked to the Patriots once before, and I think especially if they end up going and getting Andy Dalton, I could see him going there, a reunion.
All right, so that will do it for the running backs and wide receivers here. Matt and myself will be back on hopefully Monday. I don't think I have anything interrupting me this time. So back on Monday, we'll talk about tight ends and any news. Obviously, it'll be the legal tampering period, so I guess technically players can already start signing by that point in time. So
NFL Network is projecting that this weekend is going to be a bloodbath for veterans too, because of how many teams are way over the cap.
Going to be probably then a lot for us to talk about on Monday, and then we'll probably recap anything that happens on Thursday, and then maybe we'll start moving into some more off-season content with rookie stuff. We're obviously, again, a little less than a month, or a little over a month away from the NFL draft. Start previewing. Well, I want to wait till the draft happens before we start previewing teams, because who knows what they're going to do rookies, especially with all the salary cap stuff. So we'll figure out something. There's plenty to talk about. We'll figure out something to talk about next Thursday. So
yeah,
big signings.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Nambla's been pushing for a early tampering period too.
Oh my God!
And on that,
now we're never going to have a guest.
On that note, we will talk to you guys. This is just for Matt as we close out here. Everybody have yourselves a good weekend, and we will see you guys again on.
Screw you guys.